Welcome back to Football Daily, where today we bring you our top 10 players who blindsided their manager. 10. Wayne Rooney. Man United's Wayne Rooney has undoubtedly had a world-class career, and though his twilight form has seen his stock take a nosedive, there was a time that dropping him seemed unfathomable, to the point where he held the club to ransom. In October 2010, fresh off the back of a 26 league goal season, Waza turned into a bigger diva than Yaya Toure on his birthday, criticising the club for a lack of progress in the transfer market and demanding a wage of $150k after tax. That equates to roughly $300k a week. But not one to be blackmailed, Alex Ferguson went on the offensive, publicly shaming the Englishman in a TV interview. Fergie went on an enormous rant, claiming the striker had held the club over a barrel by threatening to hand in a transfer request if he didn't get a new deal, with Man City the bookies' favourites to sign the then 24-year-old. The war of words continued behind the scenes, and despite Rooney privately apologising to Ferguson and the squad, the striker finally got his wish, securing a monstrous £16 million a year. However, the striker could yet have one last big payday, as China beckons for Man United's out-of-favour captain. 9. Robin van Persie. Robin van Persie was never one to beat around the bush, even from a young age at Feyenoord, where his disciplinary record was so poor that Bert van Marwijk struggled to find a suitor for him after the two fell out. And the Dutchman's blunt nature came to the fore yet again in the summer of 2012. In the previous two seasons, Van Persie had netted a combined 59 goals, helping Arsenal reach 4th and 3rd place respectively in the Premier League. And as a consequence, he felt he deserved to be part of a team winning trophies, rather than pissing away his prime with the likes of Gervinho and Andre Santos. At the time, the Dutchman had 1 year left on his deal and made public his desire to leave the Gunners, laying the blame at the feet of Ivan Gazidis and Arsene Wenger, as he strongly disagreed with them on how Arsenal should move forward. Van Persie switched to Man United for £22.5 million the same summer and won the league title, scoring 26 league goals in the process, whilst Arsenal finished 4th. He ended up the king in the pack, while Wenger looked like the Joker. 8. Lionel Messi. Quiet and unassuming, rarely controversial when grilled by the media, it's easy to forget that as well as being one of the greatest players ever, Messi actively wields great power behind the scenes at Barcelona. Javier Mascherano once quipped, "Leo is bigger than the club, let alone the manager." And while he may have said this in a tongue-in-cheek way, there have been high-profile occasions where Messi has used his power against the manager's wishes. Despite spending 4 years under Pep Guardiola's watchful eye and scoring 211 goals in 219 games during the Spaniard's tenure, their relationship was often extremely tense. Things became particularly testing when the Catalan side signed Ibrahimovic. So much so that Mundo Deportivo once reported that Messi told Guardiola, "Play me down the centre and Zlatan on the wing, otherwise I won't play." This isn't the only surprising example of a Messi power play though. In 2014, Leo turned nasty and went head-to-head with Luis Enrique in an almighty bust-up. Sport even had "break up" as their front page splash, and claimed that Messi was training alone after telling the board to choose him or the manager. Luckily for the Blaugrana, club legend Xavi Hernandez was at hand to repair the relationship, for the duration of the season anyway. However, it's no wonder that both Pep and Luis Enrique left Barcelona due to burnout. We can't imagine what it's like. Managing Joe's ego is hard enough. 7. Alex Kolinko. He may sound like a made-up boxer, but Latvian Alex Kolinko was a goalkeeper who joined Crystal Palace from Skonto Riga back in 2000. Despite arriving as a 5-time domestic champion, Kolinko was relegated to the bench and had a testy relationship with manager Trevor Francis. In 2002, Kolinko was named as a substitute against Bradford, and when Palace conceded a goal, he laughed, prompting the coach to turn around and punch Kolinko in the face. Kolinko argued his case in the press, saying, "I was not laughing in the dugout. The manager punched me on the nose. I've not been given an explanation why he did it. My nose is very sore and bruised." He decided to get his own back, and when he was named in the team to play Leicester later in the season, he waited until the very last minute to tell the manager he would not take the field. He was released by the club and moved to Russia. 6. Ian Wright. Once Arsenal's club record signing, Ian Wright's rise to the top was far from meteoric, signing his first professional contract when he was 22. And maybe it was a product of those hard knocks that he was so good at fighting his corner. Always outspoken, the striker was almost cut loose from the North London side before Wenger arrived, after locking horns with then-manager Bruce Rioch. Their distaste for each other reached its peak when Wright uncharacteristically passed up a good chance, with Rioch claiming that his former Bolton striker John McGinley would have buried it during a post-match interview. Understandably, Wrighty wasn't a happy bunny, handing in a transfer request in February 1996. He even went directly to club chairman David Dein and asked him to get rid of Rioch shortly after. Fast forward a few years and Wright was a certified Gooners legend and winding down a career that saw him top Arsenal's scoring charts. Meanwhile, Rioch became an assistant manager at QPR. So, who do you think David Dein preferred? 5. Pierre Van Hooijdonk. Prolific Dutch striker Pierre Van Hooijdonk finished his career a well-travelled man, and for good reason. He was both a fantastic player capable of scoring spectacular set pieces and also incredibly adept at falling out with club owners. This trend started at Celtic, who were without a trophy for 6 years until the Dutchman arrived, where he spearheaded their successful bid for the Scottish Cup in his first season and netted in the final. After a prolific second season in which he scored 32 goals in all competitions, somehow he ended up on the bench thanks to a row with chairman Fergus McCann, which rumbled on throughout the whole of his third season. The Glasgow Giants then sold him on for a sizable £4.5 million to Nottingham Forest in the 96-97 winter transfer window. His arrival couldn't save them from relegation, but his 34 goals the following season did power them back to the top tier. But this is where the shit would hit the fan yet again for the Dutchman, who refused to play when the club sold his strike partner Kevin Campbell, fan favourite Kolinko, and then rejected Van Hooijdonk's transfer request. He ended up training with old club NAC Breda to stay fit, only returning to Forest, who were again facing the prospect of relegation 3 months later. The fact he returned at all was enough to piss off manager Dave Bassett, who said he would rather stick an olive branch up the striker's arse than extend one to him. His subsequent 6 goals in 19 starts couldn't keep the Midlands side up, and when he did score, his teammates often didn't celebrate with him. He was eventually sold to Vitesse Arnhem, where another prolific season earned him a move to Benfica. 4. John Terry. Even before John Terry's sign-off against Sunderland, where he memorably stopped a competitive game of football to receive a Guard of Honour, his reputation as a megalomaniac had been well established. Rewind 5 seasons to when he could actually turn quicker than milk, and you'll find a shrewd operator who many identified as the man behind Andre Villas-Boas's sacking. The Portuguese had been relieved of his duties following a 3-1 away loss at Napoli, where he'd chosen to drop seasoned pros such as Terry, Lampard, Cole, Essien and Torres. Many speculated that this was the result of an attempted coup, after senior players openly questioned Boas's tactics in front of club owner Roman Abramovich at a team meeting. And the centre-back could hardly hide his glee when he was reinstated for the home leg by his old mate Robbie Di Matteo, scoring in a 4-1 comeback as well as standing behind the passive Italian, gesticulating at his teammates in the dying embers of the game, a clear sign that he was running the show. After the game, the centre-half described the comeback as a win for English football, a thinly veiled dig at the new philosophy Boas was trying to introduce. Really, it was a win for the cunning old guard, and proof that karma doesn't exist. 3. Rodney Marsh. We're rolling back the years now all the way to 1972, when Man City were 4 points clear at the top of the league in March. And when they signed Rodney Marsh for a club record fee of £200,000, it was thought this margin would grow, especially as Marsh was averaging a goal every other game for QPR. It couldn't have gone worse for the citizens though, as Marsh failed to adjust to Malcolm Allison's well-drilled side owing to his maverick tendencies. Despite having the attacking talents of Marsh, Summerby and Francis Lee, they slipped to 4th by the end of the season. The forward even claimed in his autobiography that he cost City the title that year. He ended up staying in Manchester for 4 campaigns, eventually falling out with new manager Tony Book. Captain at the time, Marsh was sent to play with the reserves, but the manager soon gave him a chance to atone for his sins. Marsh, clearly not a man to make peace, said no chance. In fact, thinking about it more, you're not that good. Now that's how you burn a bridge. 2. Carlos Tevez. In December 2016, Carlos Tevez moved to Shanghai Shenhua on a deal that would reportedly see him earn £31 million a year. For that kind of money, the least you'd expect is for your star acquisition to turn up, not piss off to Disneyland on match days. However, that is exactly what the Argentine did, and despite the fact it was technically his day off and he had a calf problem, fans of the club saw it as a lack of commitment to the team. A solitary goal in his first 4 appearances probably didn't help matters either. But fans of the Chinese powerhouse should have expected this outlandish behaviour. Once at Man City, Tevez absconded from the first team to play golf in his native Argentina, apparently disillusioned with the game and considering hanging up his boots entirely. The catalyst for this unhappy marriage was Tevez's refusal to come on in Man City's 2-0 Champions League defeat by Bayern Munich, after which Roberto Mancini declared that Tevez would never play for City again. 2 months and several rounds of golf later, the promise was lost to the ether as Tevez returned, welcomed by his teammates and soon celebrating a hat-trick against Norwich with a tongue-in-cheek golf swing. Once convinced he'd retire aged 28 at Boca Juniors, El Apache is now all about the cash. 1. The Leicester City squad. The greatest fairy tale in football history was written and directed by Claudio Ranieri, but it was the players who penned the sequel, and boy oh boy was it a horror show. After starting the season at 5,000 to 1 outsiders, the Foxes shocked the world to win the Premier League by a massive 10 points, breaking the Premier League's monotonous hegemony and causing mass hysteria. Chris Hamill even forgot that he was a Celtic fan. But just 8 months later, the underdog became lame, and behind the scenes the extraordinary team spirit had turned bitter. Even after a host of significant pay rises, the poor results at the King Power Stadium continued well into January 2017, when the club was sitting just 1 point above the relegation zone. Cue internal beef. Allegedly, stars including Jamie Vardy and Kasper Schmeichel formed an alliance against Ranieri, even going to the board and telling them to sack the Italian immediately. And they got their wish just 1 month later, when the Tinkerman was booted out of Leicester, much to the football world's dismay. To this day, Schmeichel and co refute the claims of a rift, but their transformation under Craig Shakespeare, beating Sevilla in the latter stages of the Champions League, makes that extremely hard to believe.
So we hope you enjoyed that, and if you want to check out more of our videos, then click here on screen. Don't forget to like and subscribe and get on our Snapchat and our Twitter.